Hi folks, my name is Carl and welcome back to my channel. So the province of Quebec just announced that it is suspending two of its major immigration programs that lead to permanent residency in the province. Stay tuned as we delve into the updates in a few minutes. So the immigration minister for the province of Quebec, Mr. Jean-Francois, just announced that Quebec is suspending two of its major immigration pathways for permanent residents in the province. Now, the two programs that are being suspended are one, the Quebec Experience Program, and two, the Regular Skilled Worker Program. Now, as you recall, when we're discussing the Express Entry Program, we did mention that most of the provinces in Canada run their own immigration programs to try to get people into those specific provinces. Now, all these immigration programs run by the provinces usually fall under the main federal immigration programs, such as Express Entry. So, under Express Entry, you would find a program known as the PNP. That's the Provincial Nominee Program. So, these programs are run by the provinces themselves in order to get people into that province. Now, if you apply for a provincial nominee program and you get accepted, you get something called a provincial nomination certificate. You then use the provincial nomination certificate to apply for permanent residence in that province, okay? And usually when you move to Canada or you are able to get your permanent residence under a PNP, there are certain requirements that you need to fulfill. One of the major requirements is that usually when you get your permanent residence through a PNP, you would have to live in that province for a specified amount of time. So Quebec also has its own immigration programs, just like some provinces such as Ontario, Alberta, Saskatchewan, and the others. Now, what Quebec has announced means that for those that are looking to apply for permanent residence in Quebec under the Quebec Experience Program and the Regular Skilled Worker Program will not be able to do so. Now, the Quebec Experience Program, let's talk a little bit more about that. The Quebec Experience Program is for students that study and graduate in Quebec and also for temporary workers in Quebec. So students that studied in Quebec and the temporary workers could apply under this program and receive something called the Quebec Selection Certificate. Now, the Quebec Selection Certificate is just the name for their provincial nomination certificate, right? So usually when you get that, you would then use that to apply for permanent residence to live permanently in the province. Now, living permanently in the province does not necessarily mean that you would have to live there for the rest of your life. But like I mentioned earlier, you would have to live there for a specified amount of time. I know for some provinces it's 2 to 3 years, but it varies. And then the Quebec Regular Skilled Worker Program, known as the RSWP, is for those that wish to immigrate to Quebec permanently for work. So for this program, people that are interested in moving to Quebec have to declare their interest in immigrating to Quebec to work. And then if their profile matches the criteria needed in Quebec, they also receive an invitation to submit an application for permanent residence selection. Then if you are selected, you also get the opportunity to apply for permanent residence in Quebec. So these are the two main programs that Quebec is saying that from today, these two programs are effectively suspended. Now, if you go on the Quebec government website and just attempt to apply for any of these programs, you'd see a notice saying that these programs have effectively been suspended. Okay, now let me just read an excerpt of the notice posted on the website. So it reads, new measures for the Quebec Experience Program and the Regular Skilled Worker Program. It says, since October 31st, 2024, that's today, it is no longer possible to submit new applications under the Quebec graduate stream of the Quebec Experience Program. And the second point says the Minister of Immigration Francization and Integration will not issue invitations to submit an application for permanent selection under the Regular Skilled Worker Program, RSWP, or under the Skilled Worker Selection Program, SWSP, which will replace it as of November 29, 2024. He says both of these measures are in effect until June 30, 2025. At the latest, that is until the next pluriannual integration planning orientations are known. So that's effectively the Quebec government providing more information on the suspension. Now, the natural question here is, what are the reasons that the Quebec government is giving for these suspensions? Now, one of them is that the government has cited pressure or increasing pressure on services in the province. Now, this is not something new. If you watched my last two videos, I did speak about the fact that even the federal government itself has noticed that there is a lot of pressure on the system in Canada. Now, Quebec is also saying the same thing at this point and citing the same reason for the suspension of these two immigration programs. So Quebec is basically saying that it is struggling to accommodate the rising number of newcomers in the province. So there are lots of people coming in, and like we already mentioned before, that when there are a lot of people coming into the system and there is no proper planning, then things turn to spiral out of control. So there's pressure on housing, there's pressure on social services and amenities, there's pressure on the job system or the job market itself. So the government needs to slow things down and get things right before opening the system. So it's perfectly understandable. Again, it's not because Canada doesn't want people coming in, they just need to do it right. So one of the reasons as cited by the Quebec province is that yes, it can no longer accommodate the rising number of newcomers. Another reason that the government gave is that it is putting this freeze or the suspension in place in order to be able to reassess its immigration strategy. So as we mentioned earlier, this falls in the same line that the government is just applying the brakes now. It's probably going too fast. And this is specifically for the Quebec province or the Quebec government. This is going too fast and they just want to apply the brakes so they can, re-strategize and then hopefully open things up again. And then the third reason is that they are putting in the suspension so they can better regulate newcomers. Okay, so those are the main reasons, and I believe all these reasons are linked together. So it's just basically the same thing that the federal government and the provincial governments are all feeling or beginning to acknowledge the fact that there's a lot of pressure in the system, and you're just slowing things down to be able to re-strategize properly before letting people come in again. So if you are in the province of Quebec and you were considering applying for permanent residence in the province, well, I have bad news for you. It is no longer possible, at least until next year, June 30. If you are also outside of Canada and you were thinking about applying for the Quebec provincial nomination programs in order to move there, well, this is also a bit of bad news for you because all these two major streams have been frozen. The immigration minister for Quebec also added that this is part of a major plan to reduce permanent immigration in the province. Now, you would remember that the Quebec province actually also introduced some legislation or policies that would allow it to reduce the number of international students that also come into the province. So, I mean, Canada in itself is cutting down on the number of people that are coming in, but what you're talking about now is specifically for the Quebec province. But there is still hope because other provinces have not announced something like this yet. The federal government itself is still conducting the category-based express entry draws. So you might want to look at those as your other options. I know there are other options for other provinces as well. I know Saskatchewan is still running its provincial nomination program as well. That's the SIMP. So you might want to look into all these other options as well, because we really do not know how things are going to go come next year, June 30, if the Quebec government is going to reopen these two streams, or if it's going to extend the suspension. So you just don't want to be sitting and waiting around hoping they reopen. Just look at other options in other provinces and consider the federal programs as well. The Quebec government also explained that it is actually going to use this period to clear out the backlog of applications in the system. So we know that COVID created a bit of a backlog, and all the provincial governments and the federal government have tried a lot to clear these backlogs. But applications in Canada still take a bit of time, so maybe this is a good thing. But let me say this, in general, the province of Quebec is actually going to increase the number of its permanent residents by 10,000 next year. So this freeze actually reduces the original number that they intended. So the province of Quebec initially intended about 19,000 students transitioning to permanent residence in 2025. So this freeze actually reduces that target of 19,000 to 15,000. So seeing that the number may be a little bit too high, the province is just applying the brakes so they can better re-strategize, as we've already mentioned. Anyway, I just wanted to share this new update with you guys. Thank you for watching. And if you're new to the channel, please consider subscribing to the channel, as it really helps to grow the channel. And if you are a returning subscriber, as always, thank you so much for sticking around and for the support. Please like, share, and subscribe. I'll see you in the next one.